It was an explosive meeting. In May, Europe's diplomats and business chiefs flew to Beijing to sit down with their Chinese counterparts. The panel's title said it all: partnership or sinking ship. It turned ugly fast. When the EU's ambassador pushed back, someone in the audience heckled him, calling him a bully. Others applauded.
In my view, it was quite staged to demean Europe. Let's face it, to make Europe look weak and hopeless.
At the heart of the tension is the biggest trade imbalance the world has seen in a generation. China now sells so much more to everyone else than it buys back that its trade surplus has hit a record 1% of the entire global economy. So how did we get here? Who is getting hurt, and is a trade war between Europe and China now unavoidable? First, the sheer size of it. In 2025, China's trade surplus reached around $1.2 trillion, up a fifth in a single year. Since the pandemic, the volume of goods China ships abroad has jumped by almost 70%. Global trade as a whole grew by less than a fifth over the same period, so China has comfortably outrun the rest of the world. Its share of world exports has climbed from 13% before the pandemic to more than 19% today. And the gains are broad. China is winning ground in cheap goods like furniture and toys, and in advanced ones like semiconductors and electric cars, with the fastest growth in sales to Europe and emerging Asia. Is this enormous trade surplus seen as a problem within China?
It would be obviously an economic plus for China, because if you look at the three economic engines of China's GDP growth, and really for any economic growth, investment has been declining year over year as of May. Consumption has been declining year over year as of May. And so really the only bright spot is Chinese trade, particularly the net export.
So why is China making far more than it can sell at home? 3 reasons. 1. Chinese companies have poured enormous sums into new factories, encouraged by the government and by money fleeing the country's broken property market. 2. Chinese households are just not spending. Falling house prices and weak incomes mean demand at home is too thin to soak up everything that gets made. And 3. Competition inside China has turned brutal. Firms are slashing prices to shift stock, and selling that surplus abroad has become an obvious escape valve. Though there is a fourth thing too that Europe keeps pointing to. The OECD says that between 2005 and 2024, Chinese firms received 3 to 8 times more state support than rivals in rich countries. In 2024 alone, that came to nearly $108 billion across 15 key actors. In computer chips, subsidies reach nearly 10% of company revenue, and almost a third of China's industrial firms lose money, which shows how many of them would struggle without that backing. So who's losing out? Above all, European manufacturers, and Germany most of all. Last year, the EU's trade deficit with China hit €360 billion, double what it was before the pandemic. One European business leader in Beijing summed up the imbalance with one single image. Picture a 400-meter container ship heading to Europe stacked with 24,000 boxes, but sailing back to China almost empty. More than 40% of the containers arriving in Europe now come from China. For Germany, a country built on selling cars and machinery, this is hard to watch. German industry shed well over 100,000 jobs last year alone, with around 266,000 since 2019, with car makers hit the hardest. Take electric cars. Even after Brussels put up tariffs of 35% on Chinese EVs in 2024, Chinese car sales in Europe nearly doubled in the following years. BYD became one of the continent's best-selling electric brands, and other makers simply dodged the duties by shipping hybrids and petrol models instead. But here is the fair question. Is China really behind Europe's troubles? Beijing's defenders and plenty of economists say the bigger culprits are closer to home. High energy costs, slow bureaucracy, and a failure to innovate and to join up Europe's own single market. Block Chinese parts and materials, they warn, and you risk damaging the European factories that rely on them. France, meanwhile, points to the currency. China's yuan is reckoned to be undervalued by 15 to 30%, which makes its exports cheaper.
It's not only because China is more competitive. It isn't. That's what we need to understand. It's a mixture of support, government support, state capitalism, uh, naivete, as the French would say, on our side, that we just don't get it. And thirdly, yes, lack of competitiveness from European side.
And there is an awkward mirror image here. The deeper cause of China's surplus is that it saves far more than it invests, and Europe knows that model well because Germany ran it for years, and Germany's surplus is still about 4.5% of GDP, in the same ballpark as China's. That's the kind of imbalance tariffs can do very little about. So Europe is starting to push back case by case. It taxed Chinese electric cars, it shut Chinese firms out of public contracts for medical devices, and earlier this year it agreed tougher steel rules. EU anti-dumping cases against China have jumped from 7 in 2024 to more than 50 ongoing this year. The big unknown is how China hits back, and it holds a powerful card. It refines around 90% of the world's rare earths, the materials inside everything from electric motors to fighter jets, and more than 80% of European firms depend on Chinese supply chains for them. Beijing has already shown how it feels about this. On the 11th of June, it abruptly cancelled 2 high-level meetings with the EU and is passing new laws designed to keep the world hooked on its supply chains.
China may very well use certain tools and rules, just as the rare earth scenario in which China may apply some sort of global restriction of products that contain Chinese essential materials from being exported to certain jurisdictions. So all of these tools, we have seen them in real use, and China has obviously made it clear that if the EU were to escalate the China-EU trade conflicts, then China would reciprocate.
So where does this leave us? The world is drifting back towards the kind of lopsided trade last seen before the 2008 crash, though the financial danger looks smaller this time. The likely result is slower growth for export-heavy economies like Germany and a steady wall of trade barriers going up against China. Europe's united front is fragile. Germany fears that retaliation could freeze parts of its own industry, but Spain also wants the EU to find common ground with China.
China's game of divide and conquer is possible because of us. I wouldn't blame China on this.
There is a catch that may hold both sides back, though. As one former EU trade negotiator put it, this is a marriage with a third person in it, the United States. And neither Brussels nor Beijing can really afford to fight on 2 fronts at once. Europe needs the Chinese market, the Chinese inputs, and China, with its home market flat and its access to the US shrinking, may need Europe even more.
We shouldn't be heading for a trade war because it's a lose-lose for China and Europe. But unfortunately, I think we will.
A full-blown trade war is not certain, but on the current course, Europe and China are heading for a serious collision. We could soon find out just how fast.